Episode 2 of Sleepy Hollow, we had levies on donut holes, bad impersonations of British people, and a witch who would burn the descendants of the people who burned her to basically re-heal herself. This episode I really liked. It was obviously the second after the premiere, and it gives us what's kind of going to be the formula for this series. It's obviously a 1 hour long drama, or 45 minutes if you take out commercials, and they're gonna have the basic formula, one problem, one specific problem each episode that's gonna add to the series as a whole. And this episode I really liked, mostly because it included a lot of information that we didn't have, which is pretty much everything because it's a new series, and it had a lot to do with Katarina. We got a few little bits and pieces of her. When the episode starts off and Ichabod's basically, he says it himself, he's pretty much having a vision, and he's running from the four horsemen, which in this are death, war, famine, and conquer, I believe she said, or he said, whoever said it. And so he's in this vision, and then he meets with this dead wife, and she basically says, in order to stop the four horsemen from rising, and of course, in order to stop death from helping the other three horsemen rise, you have to stop all the different, I guess, covenants that are, working with the devil or whatever the demon may be to help bring them back. And the first is a witch from a coven, and it's obviously a bad witch from the bad coven because we found out that there were two. And this witch, I really liked how they had her in the episode, just how they showed her, she's just like burned, she's still burnt from when she was burned alive. And in order to basically heal herself, she has to burn and basically recover the ashes of the descendants of the people that murdered her. And I liked how they introduced her. They had John Cho come back. I don't know, if he's going to be in this series, because obviously he's not in the main opening, which we also got this episode. But that could just be because they don't want to spoil it too much to say whether or not he will be in the series for a long time. But I feel like he'll be in maybe 4 or 5 more episodes, and then he might end up getting killed off permanently. But so far, he's been resurrected. He looks kind of gross because his neck's still like super like flabby from when you're super fat and you lose all that weight, and he just has like the excess skin. But who knows? That might heal up. He's also still pretty pale because he was dead. But he goes through this episode, and it's kind of interesting to see how he interacts with all the descendants, the two descendants really. And it's not really apologetic. In the first one, he does say he's sorry, but it's more like he's just sad to see it happen, because even though he's a part of whatever is going on, he doesn't exactly want to see people just get killed off left and right who are just going about their normal lives. And he just seems like he's kind of sad when he talks to the guy in the car. And then when he's talking to the kid, he just seems creepy the whole time. But when he asks him for his name, and he says, I'm Kyle, then he says your last name, he's like, I have to hear it. He just seemed really sad, especially because it's a young kid who obviously has he has a connection to all this demonic stuff going on, but he obviously isn't really a part of it in any way, shape, or form. He's just a kid who's like playing with his friends, and now he's gonna get killed off because the devil wants the four horsemen to basically take over the planet and kill everybody. So it was kind of interesting just to see his interaction with the characters, and how he's not exactly just like happy-go-lucky about doing what he has to do. And it could be because he was killed last episode, so he doesn't exactly want to fail, or like I said, it could be because he's watching people, or he knows that people will be getting killed off who are completely innocent, and they just happen to have a bloodline connection to people who died hundreds of years ago. Something else they did in this episode that I thought was really well done. We got more of the connection between Ichabod and Abby. Like I said, when Abby does the impression towards the end of the episode, she goes through it, and at first I thought he wasn't going to say anything, but he's like, okay, I figured this out so how we can stop the witch. And then after he says that, he says like, and that was a horrible impression, by the way. And I thought that was really funny. And in the earlier part of the episode when he's waking up and he's in the motel room, and she put little sticky notes on everything to say push the red button for coffee, left is cold, right is hot. And when he turned on the shower, it kind of freaked him out, which I knew it would, because you could probably imagine, well, you might be able to imagine, you know 250 years ago, they didn't exactly have like just high pressure water systems just like cleaning people off. They barely even really had people getting clean too often when you think about it that way. So you have like this water that just shoots on him, and he kind of freaks out and falls over in the shower. And it was just funny to see him interacting with things. And we got in the last episode when he was interacting, when he was in the car and he was like making the window go up and down, and then Abby locked it because she got annoyed by it. So it was cool to see him interact more, with current technology. And by the end of the episode, if any of you caught it, he does get Abby some coffee on his own. And it, of course, for us, it seems so simple, but it shows how he's advanced even through this one episode. And even if it's something as minor as getting coffee, it was really simple. All he had to really do is, just pick up the mug and pour the coffee. But it shows how he's a bit more comfortable with it, even though he called it like morning joy or something like that, which I thought was really funny too. And we just got more dialogue from him. I always like when they're characters from like old times and current times. So he of course says different things. Like he says lieutenant like lieutenant, which is how it was pronounced, and he says a ton of other words. Like levy, which is taxes, and just a ton of other random things that he says that are still from the old times. But for some people it might not be clear what he's saying, but for people like me who watch like a ton of random things, I know what the different words mean, even though they're the old versions of the words. So it's cool to have him talk like that, and they interact with each other. And like I said, when she imitated him, I thought it was really funny, and like I just really enjoyed that part because she imitates him. And then like I said, I thought he was gonna ignore it, but he doesn't, and he's like, that was a really bad impression. It's kind of like, don't do it again. Something else, with Katarina again, if any of you might have missed it, and it could be something very simple and mean nothing, but of course, with this being only the second episode, you kind of have to, pick and choose little details to find to kind of, figure out where the story's gonna go. But on Katarina's headstone, you might have noticed that she has like the pyramid with the eye in it that's on the dollar bill. And now obviously I have no idea if that means anything at all, but I thought it was interesting that you could see it, so maybe it has some meaning or will have some meaning later on. Like who knows what it could really mean. I mean, obviously your headstone, which we found out in the last episode, is for a false grave because she's a witch, and as we found out in this episode, any witch that is killed is not given a proper burial, so their bones are buried underground, pretty much just like just toss the bones underground and that's it. So wherever her remains are, I feel like that could be the solution to the little hint that we get in this episode where Ichabod mentions, if she's trapped in between worlds, which would be purgatory, maybe she could be released. And that would be really cool to see if we get her, at the end of this season, or once again hopefully in the second season if we get one. But I think it would be really cool for them to, implement her into this series. And like I said, it'll probably be next season if we get a second season. And I say that mostly because of all the, new things that they have to put in. They have to put in the new characters, or the new villains, I guess. Every episode we're having, Abby's sister was officially introduced. And I was kind of hoping for some reason that they kind of hold off on showing it. It was kind of obvious, when Abby has sort of the vision of the former captain, or I guess former captain because he died. And, when he says, don't be afraid of the number 49, it was fairly obvious to me, and of course, it might not have been to any of you, or, to some of you, I want to say, like, just nobody got it. But, for anyone who might not have gotten it, I thought it would be a little bit cooler if they held off a few more episodes before introducing her, just to have, Ichabod and Abby kind of become connected even more so. But at the same time, it is the first season, so it does make sense that they, kind of put in the characters, really early on to get people interested. Like, you know, because for me personally, I'm gonna watch the series regardless of whether or not they have her sister, you know, in the episode or in the next episode or anything like that, because I'm really interested in the show, and I thought last week's episode was really well done, and I thought this episode was, you know, just as well done, if not better, because we got, you know, just more information from the characters and more interaction from, you know, Ichabod and interacting with the world as it is now. But, you know, for anyone who might be on the fence, I could see that as a really good, you know, story element to the show, because of course Abby and her sister, after having dealt with the demon, kind of went on completely opposite paths. You know, her sister pretty much just went crazy, and so now she's in an asylum, and Abby kind of went down. Well, I guess at first they were kind of on the same path. You know, her sister went crazy, and she kind of did too, but in a more, you know, lifelike way, where people, you know, turn to drugs and things like that, and, you know, drugs, a life of, you know, drugs and crime, to try to forget things that have just like tormented them, even though it's something that seemed like it would be so simple. You know, we hallucinated and passed out, and it just became a huge part of their lives because they both know that it happened. And obviously it's hard to get people to believe, you know, we saw these random fir trees and like this weird demon that we couldn't make out, and then we fainted and someone found us in the woods. You know, it's hard to get people to believe that. So it was interesting, you know, to get that story. And like I said, you know, her sister went crazy, and she did too in a way. But when she was caught, by the captain, you know, he basically said, you know, I liked his part where he said, you know, I forgot what he had because I don't eat it. So it was like, I want to say apple pie a la mode. And so, you know, he says, like, I really enjoy it because I love how the ice cream gets the crunchy part of the pie, and it's like a great mixture. But if you wait, you know, 5 minutes, it's just a mess because the ice cream melts, and it's not as good. That's not the point. It's to have it, you know, in the beginning and have it nice and basically clean. And so he says, you know, you have 5 minutes to turn your life around. And I thought it was a really good moment. And, you know, Abby says herself, I got more fathering, you know, in those 5 minutes than I did my whole life. So I thought it was just great to show that connection, you know, even more so because you could obviously tell that they were really close. You know, he's like the older, you know, he was the older cop, and she's like the young, not exactly rookie, but you could see, you know, there's obviously like a decade or more of experience on his side compared to hers. And, you know, we got an actual story of how they really met and how he helped her change her life around. So it was really cool to see that. And it'll be interesting to see how she interacts with her sister once her sister's out of the asylum. And also, when her sister's in the asylum and she takes the pills, I don't know how many people thought of this, but any like nurse or whatever who doesn't say lift your tongue up, that person should just be fired, because that should be like a general rule for anyone who works in that field. It's like, you have to lift your tongue up so I can be sure. But all right, you know, she should be fired, and she just screwed up, whatever. But, you know, her sister, after she spits out the pill and she crushes it, you know, she's working out. Like, she's like just working out. It makes me think of Sarah Connor, if anyone knows that. It's from Terminator, which you should, because it's amazing. But, you know, she's like just working out in the room, and then the demon appears behind her for a quick second, and, you know, she senses it and turns around, and, you know, it's gone. So obviously, with Abby and Ichabod working to stop this demon, you know, he, or it, I guess, has some sort of plan for Abby's sister, because obviously they're both connected. They're sisters. They both experience the same thing. Maybe the demon will try to control her to, you know, basically stop Abby and Ichabod, you know, because it would be a little bit harder to just, you know, for Abby to just like kill off her sister. So we'll have to wait and see how that works out. But this episode, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, you know, great. It was cool how they had the witch in there. Like I said, the information, the little bit that we got for Katarina, and just how she ended up being the one who sealed the witch, I thought was a cool little bit. Like, they didn't really need to add that at all, but I thought it was cool that they did, because, you know, she's like, you know, I could smell, it was something like, I could smell the stench of her love on you, or something like that. And I thought that was a cool line. It's like, oh, you know, Ichabod isn't just, you know, he doesn't just know about this witch from, you know, his past, but he's also connected to her in a way, because his wife is the one who sealed her powers away. So I thought that was a little like a cool connection that they had that obviously didn't need to be put in there, but it was just a cool line that kind of shows more about Katarina and how she was pretty high up if she's the one who's like sealing away another witch, or like one of the witches. I would assume, obviously I don't know, but I would assume she'd have to be pretty high up on the scale to be in that type of ceremony where she's sealing away someone else's power. So it gives a little bit of a background. You kind of have to dig for it when you really think about it, because I wasn't thinking about that until just now. Like, she'd have to be pretty powerful to do that. But it does give us a little bit of background on her, and I definitely can't wait to see, how they do it, if they do release her or anything like that. And before it was mentioned that she was stuck in between worlds, and hopefully this reference isn't too nerdy for anybody, but I thought that it was kind of like in Naruto where his parents, their spirits are kind of sealed within him and they get released during specific parts of the story. I thought it was kind of like that, but obviously she's just like in purgatory, and she just happens to be a fairly powerful witch, so that's how she's able to connect with Ichabod. And plus, obviously they're married, so they have a much closer connection than a ton of other people. So that would also explain why she's able to contact him when he's in his dreams. And I would assume it's a lot harder to do it while he's awake, so that's why she's able to do it, because she's really powerful, and they also have that connection. But loved the episode overall. Funny moments. Favorite was definitely the donut thing, how he was so mad about that, saying we should, like, why are people like flocking in the streets and stuff like that. I love that part. But the whole episode I thought was really well done. Funny moments, great dialogue, great backstory, and the preview we got for next week seemed really interesting. So I'm curious to see how that plays out and how they really implement Abby's sister into the fold, and whether or not she'll be in a lot of episodes, or if it'll be sort of a she's in next week and then maybe like the last three episodes of this season, or however it plays out. I'm sure it'll be very well done. But comment below, let me know what you thought of the episode, and I guess the preview, and how you think next week's episode might play out. And thanks for watching.